prepping yourself mentally and physically in the morning is key because you've got everything done for the day and you're ready to set, the tone to work, right? So going to the gym, taking your steps, if you're walking, just proper hydration, setting up myself also the night before is also key. So I know what I'm wearing the next day. I don't have to think about it twice. So it's these little habits that I feel like you can show up successfully in the day.
Welcome to the Real Freedom Show, where we inspire you to pursue your passion to gain time and financial freedom through opportunities in real estate. I'm your host, Mike Swenson. Let's get some real freedom together. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Freedom, where we talk about different ways that people build time and financial opportunities in real estate. I am your host, Mike Swenson. If you want to get started in real estate, you can check out our website, freedomthroughrealestate.com. That's freedomthroughrealestate.com. We love to highlight different stories, different ways that people are using real estate to accomplish their career goals and their future path of what they want to do. And today is no different. Super excited. We have Jessica DeRay. And so she is a real estate agent from Canada, from the Montreal area, and excited to hear her share her journey, talk a little bit about kind of differences, real estate, US versus Canada, and even talk about, too, people maybe looking for moving across the border each way, as you've helped people kind of do both. So great discussion. Super excited to have you on the show, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk about my journey.
So why don't you just take us back before you got into real estate? Would love to kind of hear what you did before that, and we'll take it from there.
It's quite funny because I kind of almost stumbled into real estate. I always had an inkling for it. I guess I always wanted to be an architecture into architecture, sorry, or in interior design, and I kind of didn't have the math for the architecture part. So I said, you know what, let's do something else. So I went into something that allowed me to be a little bit more creative in school. So I went into event planning and marketing, which led me to a corporate position. And so I was doing marketing and events for this company, actually a very large company. It's in the US as well too, ABB. I was in the marketing department there. And soon enough, I just kind of, as things started progressing over a few years, things started to play out. A lot of people started to get not laid off necessarily, but departments started to get smaller, and so did my tasks. And I started wondering, I'm like, okay, I think I'm next. I think I'm going to be on the chopping block. And what will allow me some freedom and allow me to get into some of that creative that I was so longing for. And marketing, you only have so much, especially for a company such as ABB that doesn't have that. It's a very technical company. So I decided to actually contact a local real estate agent at the time and just, hey, ask, do you need help with, I believe it was home staging to start, because that allowed me to go and dive deeper into the whole interior design concept. And so, yeah, I started working for this real estate agent, and soon I discovered that I was actually good with talking to clients and learning about the market.
Well, it's interesting, for a lot of people, well, kind of the joke is, hey, I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 anymore, so I got into real estate so I could work 24/7. But what we find is that freedom piece is really important because at least you have the opportunity to kind of do what you want, a little bit of when you want. Now you are at kind of your clients' time needs, and so there's a lot there. But the nice thing is you're building your own path. It's not something that can be taken away from you, right? And we find a lot of people that have job uncertainty, don't know what the future is going to hold, not necessarily excited about what the next 5 or 10 years might bring at their current career. And so it's like, hey, it's a chance for me to kind of build my thing, pave my own entrepreneurial path, and do something different. So
absolutely. And I feel as though with real estate, yes, we can work, up to 90 hours a week or whatnot, but you have the control over that 90 hours, I feel like, especially if you actually carve out your calendar appropriately. Like I'm always trying to figure out how to utilize my calendar that's more beneficial for me. So I have my non-negotiables in the morning, which I make sure I do them every time. And that sets me up for success for the day or for the week, right? So it's all the small habits that we put in place that allow us to make sure that those 90 hours go a long way.
yeah. And I know for me, being able to, coach some of my kids' sports teams, and my wife has a flexible schedule too. And I sometimes think like, I don't know if our kids realize what the 9 to 5 W-2 type jobs are like because they haven't been exposed to that just because we've been able to have that freedom and flexibility. And now what they do see is, working after the fact, or, their interpretation might be like, well, dad's always working. It's like, well, the reason I'm working the others hours is so that I can do the things with you and be a part of your activities and do that. So yeah, there's definitely a give and take involved. But yeah, there's a lot of hours to be had to
A
be able
hundred
to build a
percent.
business in real estate.
100%. I was a stepmom before, and they were kind of used because their father as well too was a solopreneur, and so they got to see us, staying at home, working from home, or going out and about and having all these different hours. But I think it's also letting them know exactly what it is that we do and why we're doing it for, and making sure that we're there for the important parts of their, lives and their different stages. And then when we need to take a step back because of work, we just let them know and make sure that that's communicated properly. I think that's, at the end of the day, kids just want to be, heard and loved and just acknowledged, right? So I think,
Mhm.
yes, it's a busy situation scenario, but it all works out in the end.
So, talk a little bit about the early days, building momentum in real estate, networking, focusing on certain clients to build your client base. Would love to hear kind of that story of getting your feet wet and starting to build that momentum because it's a challenge for a lot of people.
Oh, 100%. And I remember when I first started real estate, I said, oh my, I'm going up against some heavy hitters that have been in the business for way longer than I have. And I had just started and I was fresh, young. I was in my 20s and I said, oh my God, no one's going to take me seriously. And I already look much younger than I already am. So I said, how do I utilize this to my advantage? And so I thought, I have an advantage. I know social media. So at the time, which was over a decade ago, I was, using social media. I said, why don't I just put myself out there through these platforms? And that would be a really good way to kind of capture people through these social media platforms. And no one else was doing it. No one even knew how to use Instagram or how to utilize Facebook groups, for example. So I really just dove in and really started utilizing Instagram mostly. And people were reaching out through there actually. And they liked the posts I was sharing. Interior design and all those fancy cool house stuff wasn't really out there at the time. So that's what I was focusing on, not necessarily educational content per se, but how, showcasing nice places and spots, community stuff. And then came some of the educational posts like tips and tricks. And that's how I kind of got into it. And people were like, who is this person? And why does she know these things? So I had
Mhm.
people reach out to me and DM me, and that's how it kind of got, and it started like a snowball effect from there.
Was it just people asking kind of clarifying questions or tell me more about that? Or is it like, hey, I've seen you've done a lot of this. I have a house to sell or I want to, buy a house. Like how long of kind of a warming up period with those relationships? Or was it just people seeing like, hey, she looks like she knows what she's talking about. So I'm going to reach out to her.
So a bit of both, actually. So I had
Hmm.
people kind of reach out to me, especially I guess in the younger bracket, being like, "Hey, I'm looking to buy. You look like pretty cool," because people want to buy from people they know, like, and trust, right?
Right.
And have the similar values and things like that. So they reached out to me saying like, "Hey, we want to buy. We want to work with you. Would you take us on?" So that was kind of how it started there. And on the flip side was also, I would call them third parties. So people that were either in lending or financial advisors were also actually asking like, hey, would you want to, work on seminars and workshops? This was obviously pre-pandemic. And so
Mhm.
I was going, yeah, for sure. Like, why not? And I was grabbing at any opportunity possible just so I can get into the door and get my name out there.
In terms of kind of business as it grew, have you always kind of been on your own? Sometimes people take on a team. How did that work in your journey?
It's been quite a journey, I'll say.
Hmm.
So I first started at a top tier brokerage, I would say. And so I was right under somebody there. And then for whatever reasons, it just didn't pan out. And then I went and, worked with somebody else. I always just wanted to start not solely by myself. I just kind
Hmm.
of wanted to make sure I was not shadowed per se, but making sure that I was learning the right way. So I was partnered with somebody and then eventually I went on my own and then now I'm with a team. I
Mhm.
find after working alone, especially with, the market shifts that we've been having, I feel a team dynamic is actually a better approach.
Yeah, I've always been on
Especially,
a team from the beginning. I really believe in teams, and too, because it's you've got people to talk to, bounce ideas off of,
Mhm.
figure out what's working well. And you can still do that at a brokerage, but it's just at a different level. Like you just have a different level of connection with people. And then too, being able to help out like on schedules, whether it's
Mhm.
open houses or showings or different things like that, you have other people so that you've got a little bit more time freedom with things, and then you've got leverage of, admin and different things like that. So I think there's a ton of value being a part of a team.
100%. And they always say, like, if you want to build something big, like, have a team. You can't just be one person doing it all. And I find with our team specifically, we all have different skill sets that bring such a uniqueness to our team. So I find, like, I'm more of the marketing girl. So I'll come
Mhm.
up with the ideas for some content. And so you're the one's really good at negotiations. Someone's really good at, fetching the business. So I find having that team dynamic with different skill sets really helps us set us apart. So I really like that about a team.
Now you mentioned about coming from a marketing background and events. Obviously you started in social media, but what are maybe some thoughts you have in terms of marketing to be successful in real estate, to be able to bring in that business? What do you see out there? What ideas do you have for people?
It really does change, and it's a loaded question because
Hmm.
it's almost like TikTok. You know how there's a different trend every week? I don't know if you
Hmm.
follow TikTok, but now it's kind of the same thing for agents. There's a meme that was posted on Instagram saying, "Oh, I used to sell homes, but now I'm actually like a marketing manager. I'm a clown in videos and all these things." That's basically it. It's kind of almost following the trends. But I like to, coming from marketing, it's always like we want to be ahead of the trend. And I'm always thinking, like, what's next? What can we do to elevate this? So, time has passed about the videos of Welcome to 1, 2, 3, 4 Sesame Street,
Hmm.
those are quickly losing, its fuel. So you got to grab onto the next. So I always try to find ways to catch and capture people's attention within the first second of a video. So I'm always doing my research on that and really trying to focus on I walk into a property, like what will stand out about this property, really focusing on the lifestyle. Is it the location? Is it the pool in the backyard? What is it about a property that we should feature solely versus having to showcase every bit of a property? Leave it to
Hmm.
the imagination almost.
It certainly is a challenge because there's lots of agents out there, and the average person knows, three, four, five agents, and you've got to find
Yeah.
a way to stand out. And so, especially in the media now with instant attention and like you said, needing to grab people's attention in the first second or two, it's a challenge.
Such a challenge. And you have to just look at the metrics and the ROI as well too. You can't really figure that out in, dollar value, but in terms of views per se, or how many people have called or reached out from that. So I think our team does a really good job at looking at those metrics to the point now we've realized we also post educational videos too, that really go in depth in certain topics. And those have been working really well, depending on the topic, of course. Because if
Hmm.
it's a bank rate that's been cut, I mean, everyone posts those. So that really doesn't necessarily grab as much traction. But for some reason, DIYs, or how to cut a few costs or whether to, do a reno or not when it's time to list, those videos really grab attention.
And then obviously, we talk about, the amount of time that it takes to get a new client versus retaining your existing clients. You need to be marketing to them as well and making sure that
Absolutely.
build a moat around them so that they want to continue to use you over and over again versus always looking for eyeballs of new followers and all that.
Exactly. So we always, in our newsletter too, that we have to our clients, we always just make sure to keep them abreast of what we're doing and linking them always to our content so that they know that we're continuously there and providing value no matter what. And then naturally, not if they're not going to buy again or whatnot, they're always just going to refer us. So that's really a good thing. So content wise, like people just don't realize that it's not just for Instagram and Facebook visibility or whatnot. It's really also for your existing clients because that content could always be just repurposed, to the next person that they think that, might need that information as well.
Now, in terms of your job changing over the years as you've gained more and more experience, in terms of kind of the day to day, maybe the types of properties, the areas you're working, would love to hear kind of how your client base or kind of territory has maybe changed a little bit as you've grown more and more in experience.
So I worked primarily in the suburbs of Montreal, so just outside of the downtown core, I would say. And so we typically obviously do just single family dwellings and condominiums, for example. So here, I would say the shift in our little niched neighborhood is that a lot more buildings have been constructed for rentals because now we see this influx where people are just not getting their mortgage done. And so they want to have that flexibility of going into a rental, which our little pocket here did not have a lot of rental opportunities. So now there's a lot of buildings being constructed to house a lot of just, rentals. That's it, and that's all. So that's what we're kind of seeing. It's the landscape has shifted a bit. So we're seeing more of those buildings come into fruition. And also because the older generation had nowhere to go. It's like, where do you place them once they've, sold their houses? Where do they go? They're autonomous. So where do we put them? So that's why these buildings were also put in place to house these individuals that, no longer can be in a home and want a smaller space.
So now you talked about US versus Canada. You talked about there's a lot of people kind of coming north, people coming, leaving Canada, going to the US. I would love to just kind of hear your thoughts on kind of the Canada market versus US market and some of those opportunities, like you mentioned, about people getting second homes. So just would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I deal a lot with the feeder markets as well, from Quebec to, for example, Florida. So
Hmm.
that's a really hot market for us as well too. The political landscape is obviously going to change the dynamic of things as well. Primarily now people want to get out of the States and just come back, or, vice versa, want to leave Canada and, go to the States. So we always try to help our clients and making sure that they're how do I say this? Well adverse. We put them in contact with people in those theater markets and making sure that they know what to do exactly. I've noticed a trend too where people who have moved to the States primarily for work are also coming back here to lay down the roots back into Canada. And also, again, though, the same thing to going to the US. A lot of people are taking job opportunities that are no longer here in Quebec, and getting them elsewhere in the States. And also remote wise, there's a lot of opportunities where people are buying, not here, either in Canada or the US, and looking for remote places such as Mexico to live in. So my job here is almost like I'm a liaison. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
who do you need? And just making sure that I have the right people that are very skilled. And I always make sure to ask people, okay, who have you worked with in the past, from this location, and making sure that that referral is going to be in good hands.
Yeah, I mean, referrals are huge. You want to make sure that you're putting people in good hands. I've had that happen before where I send out a referral and it doesn't work out well and it's not what they're looking
Mm.
for. And so, your reputation is at stake and you want to make sure that you're putting people with knowledgeable folks that understand and care for and have the time to be able to take care of the people that you refer. And so, yeah, networking is huge. You've got to be able to make those great relationships with people and know that you are having them in good hands. And like you said, now people are coming back too. And so that might
Yeah.
switch the other way. So getting that referral back from somebody is important.
Exactly. And I have to say, that's back to the career and where I started too. I made a huge emphasis on, being that person that people can refer to here and also outbound as well. I think it was a big chunk of my business, almost 60% or more when I first started in referrals, because I wanted to make connections with people across Canada. Quebec still remains the cheapest province to purchase. So for our feeder markets in the U.S. that either wanted to buy a secondary property, like here we are, your U.S. dollar goes a lot further here in Canada, of course, and obviously
Hmm.
for the other provinces too, compared to Vancouver, Toronto, we are still the cheapest. So people that were coming here, I wanted to be that resource in Montreal for them. And so that's kind of how it worked itself out. And I made sure to be that resource. I, went to events, I contacted agents, I made sure I was top of mind all the time. And to this day, it still trickles down to being like, oh, hey, you, you're the girl from
Mhm.
Montreal. So it always works out in the end. So I think referrals is a huge business that I think people don't utilize as much as they should.
There's a lot of people that I know in yeah, some higher tourism markets or some markets where a lot of
Mhm.
people are moving to. Yeah, you can make a significant amount of money just from referrals. Not even focusing on your own folks in your own community because people are coming to your spot. And so yeah, whether
Yes.
Florida, those types of markets, Las Vegas, Nashville here in the U.S., like those are the biggies where yeah, if you set up and make great relationships with agents, you can bring in a lot of business. Are you looking to get started or scale in real estate investing but don't know your next step? Are you overwhelmed thinking about finding deals, analyzing deals, doing due diligence, and managing properties on top of it? Go ahead and push the easy button and invest with us. Real estate investing is what we do full time. We've done dozens of deals with hundreds of doors. We have the knowledge and experience to handpick the best deals that most investors can't find. We vet large off-market deals all the time where you can hopefully find returns and economies of scale that you just can't find on your own. The best thing is it's 100% passive to you for less capital than you put down trying to acquire a property on your own. Don't let this year go by where you don't make the leap, add to your portfolio, or you just sit in analysis by paralysis. To find out more, visit freedomthroughrealestate.com and click on invest. You can book a call and learn more there. So get to scaling your portfolio now with us by your side. Now, you had mentioned about daily habits and morning routine. Would love to hear you talk a little bit more about that as being a key part of your success and kind of what you do and what you've attributed that success to by having those daily habits and morning routines.
I'm still refining it because sometimes I feel like I have so many steps in my days that, or to, before I start my day that I'm almost going, okay, I got to refine it so it's a little cut shorter or else I'm dashing out of the house. But I just find prepping yourself mentally and physically in the morning is key because you've got everything done for the day and you're ready to set, the tone to work, right? So going to the gym, taking your steps, if you're walking, just proper hydration, setting up myself also the night before is also key. So I know what I'm wearing the next day. I don't have to think about it twice. So it's these little habits that I feel like you can show up successfully in the day. So you don't know who you're going to meet, what last minute lunch someone's going to ask you to. So you got to just really be prepared for the day. So that's kind of how I plan my morning routine, which is already starting the night before, essentially. And it all comes down to also, to the things I consume. So I make sure that in the morning, if I'm going out for a walk, for example, like I know already what podcast I'm listening to just jump up my frequency. So I think that's attributed to my success is to really know that by time 9 o'clock rolls in and I've got to tackle all those emails that have come in, well, I'm already primed to do so.
Yeah, it really is important because I think conserving mental energy in the morning, like you had said, like laying things out, having that ready to go, and then just energizing yourself because it's a lot. It's a high pressure, high stress work environment to be in. And so you need to make sure that you're at your peak performance ready to go for the day. Because if you come stumbling in on fumes and not having that energy, it's gonna suck the life out of you pretty quick in the morning.
Exactly. I mean, I will admit there are some days where it's a bit more lenient. I'm like, oh, I have nothing, nobody to see, nothing is going on today. I could actually be more of a relaxed fit and do my thing. So that's kind of, it's good. I take advantage of those days for sure. But essentially it's just making sure that I always hit those non-negotiables in the morning and it's journaling, reading, meditating, and whatever people feel like it is called to them, just do it in the morning. And at night, I mean, listen, have a good night routine, get yourself a good night's sleep. Some people always ask me, well, what if I'm not a morning person? What do I do? I'm going, well, do it at night. Prime yourself at night, I guess. But yeah, I think just knowing who you are as an individual too and what works and what doesn't is also key to success as well too. Like don't force something if it's not you.
What other advice might you have for, younger agents, people getting into real estate today? It feels like there's always different pressures, stresses, whatever it might be with the different markets of real estate. And, you've been in it long enough to see a few different things. But yeah, what would you advise for people that are looking to build a career in real estate or to get into real estate, do it as a side hustle, whatever that might be?
I think, well, I was told this many times, never use it as a side hustle, like fully dive into it 100%. And I know not everyone has the means at first and they always want to just test out the waters. But I think to be fully successful, you got to plunge in at 100% to make it into a lasting business. But I would tell a newer agent is, I'm now focusing more on systems and how things, and also learning AI to help us create better systems as well too. So I think just really be of value. So really learn what is up and coming and learn systems. So because those systems will help you navigate your career and learn how to optimize your business 10x. So if I would have implemented systems from the get-go, so CRMs, for example, making sure, I was just tracking everything down to a T, I think I would have done a lot of things differently. So I think for a newer agent is making sure, you're calculating all your expenses, knowing where your marketing is going and what those metrics are, what is working, what is not working. Where is most of your business coming from, right? If you're, a month in, 2 months in, if you've done a few sales, tracking those things, because then that can help you deviate or, keep going down that path. So I think it's really like systems and I think now it's AI too, how it could utilize, how could you benefit you in your business.
Yeah, you had mentioned about part-time. It's hard. It's really hard. The longer I've been in the business, the more I realize that if you're coming in part-time on something, you've got to have a plan and a date, right? Like you've got to be
Mhm.
building momentum towards something. Because I said otherwise, it's like you're running a sprint in your day job and you're running a sprint at your night or weekend, whatever that might be, and eventually you're going to run out of gas. And so it's very fatiguing. And so you can only do that double sprint for a certain amount of time. And so, yeah, if you are coming into real estate, you've got to have a plan of how that momentum is going to build and then a date where you do cut in, because otherwise you're just going to eventually wear yourself out because, yeah, you can't get that traction that you need to turn it into a full-time thing unless you get in full-time.
100%. And I still know some people, and these might be older agents that are still just transacting a little bit and they have their license because, they have a network of some sort. And
Hmm.
then they have another job that they do. I remember doing a transaction with, I believe, a lady that worked for an airline because she was able to travel so much, but also was doing real estate and just trickling, actually phasing out of real estate. And
Hmm.
she became a little bit frazzled. I think she kept forgetting a few things and couldn't recall a few things about the property. And I think it disserviced her in a way at the end because of the fact that she wasn't able to be fully present. And obviously the time differences were just, I couldn't communicate with her
Hmm.
essentially. So it does take a toll whether we like to hear it or not.
Yeah, I could say I can tell when I'm working with a part-time agent because yeah, you don't hear back from them at certain times. So that makes
Exactly.
sense. Awesome. Well, Jessica, any parting thoughts, parting wisdom, anything that you want to share here before we wrap up?
You know what? Real estate's a tough game, especially now shifting markets. I just want to say parting wisdom, know your market, know the ins and outs, tap into your network as much as possible. And I always think right now, it's time to go back to the basics and basically just service your clients at the basic level. That's what they really need right now.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. For people that want to reach out to you or connect with you more, how can they do so?
They can do so through my Instagram at Jessica DeRay or my website, which is easier. It's jessicadray.com, and that'll link you to everything.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Thank
Fun
you.
to hear your story and how it's changed and grown over time. And best of luck to you as you continue on in real estate in the future.